I was lying on the cold pavement, unable to move, while the man who had destroyed my life calmly checked the scratch on his luxury car. He looked down at me with a smirk and said, "People like you should stay off the road." 6 months later, that same man stood trembling inside a courtroom as every secret he had buried appeared on a giant screen. Before we begin, please like and subscribe. Now, get comfortable and enjoy. My name is Alice. I was 28 years old, and I worked as a delivery rider 7 days a week. My old scooter was more than transportation. It was my family's lifeline. Every grocery bag, every prescription, every rent payment depended on those daily deliveries. My father had advanced kidney disease and needed expensive medication every month. My mother had lost the use of both her legs after a factory accident years earlier. There were no wealthy relatives waiting to help us. No family friends offering support. Every responsibility rested on my shoulders. Most mornings began before sunrise. I quietly brewed the cheapest instant coffee I could find, checked my delivery apps, and prayed for enough orders to survive another day. On good days, I earned around $130 before fuel and maintenance. On bad days, I barely made enough to buy groceries. I tracked every dollar inside a small notebook. If I wasted $20, my father might miss his medicine. If my scooter broke down, we would have no income at all. That afternoon, I had just picked up 2 office lunch orders worth $48. The traffic light turned green. I eased into the intersection, then everything exploded. A black luxury sedan ignored the red light and crashed directly into my scooter. The impact threw me across the asphalt. My shoulder slammed against the road, pain shot through my ribs, the food containers burst open beside me. People screamed, someone called an ambulance, someone else started recording with a phone. The driver stepped out wearing a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. The expensive scent of Creed Aventus surrounded him as he slowly removed his sunglasses. He didn't ask if I was hurt. He stared at the small dent on his front bumper. "You delivery people are everywhere," he muttered with obvious annoyance. I struggled to breathe. "You ran the red light," I whispered. He laughed. "My lawyer will take care of this." Within minutes another luxury vehicle arrived. The 2 men quietly exchanged a few words, then I watched the newcomer slip folded cash into the hand of a traffic officer. The officer nodded without hesitation. Seconds later he began writing a report that blamed me for the accident. The ambulance doors closed. I watched the wealthy driver smile with complete confidence that he believed money could erase the truth. He never imagined the biggest mistake of his life was leaving me alive. The emergency room smelled of antiseptic and fresh paint. Doctors confirmed that my left shoulder was fractured, 3 ribs were cracked, and my knee had suffered severe ligament damage. They estimated I would be unable to work for at least 8 weeks. 8 weeks sounded like a sentence, not a recovery. My father needed dialysis appointments and medication every month. My mother depended on me for almost everything. We had only $312 left in our savings account. The following morning an insurance investigator visited my hospital room carrying a thin folder. His voice was polite, almost rehearsed. "I'm sorry, Miss Alice," he said. "According to the official police report, you caused the collision." I stared at him. "That's impossible." He sighed. "I understand your frustration, but this is the report we received." The moment he left, I knew something was terribly wrong. When I returned home 3 days later, my damaged scooter was waiting outside a repair garage. The mechanic handed me a printed estimate. $6,200. The frame was bent. The engine mount had cracked. Repairing it made no financial sense. I thanked him anyway and slowly walked home carrying a bag of pain medication. My mother smiled when she saw me, pretending not to notice how carefully I moved. My father apologized for becoming a burden. That hurt more than my injuries. After they went to bed, I opened my cracked phone and searched for the driver's name using the license plate I had memorized before the ambulance arrived. His name appeared instantly. Ethan Callaway. Chief Executive Officer of Callaway Holdings. Estimated net worth, hundreds of millions of dollars. Magazine covers described him as a brilliant businessman and generous philanthropist. I almost closed the page. Then I noticed something strange. One photograph showed Ethan standing beside the same traffic officer who had accepted cash at the accident scene. Both men were smiling at a charity gala. I enlarged the image 3 times. It was definitely him. At that exact moment, my fear disappeared. So did my anger. In its place came something much colder. Clarity. If powerful people protected each other, I could not afford emotional mistakes. I needed undeniable evidence. The next morning, I borrowed my neighbor's old laptop and began collecting documents. Hospital invoices. Medical reports. Prescription receipts. Delivery records proving exactly where I had been before the collision. I contacted the restaurant whose lunches had been destroyed during the accident. They emailed GPS logs showing the pickup time and route. Then I called every witness listed in the ambulance report. Most refused to get involved. One elderly schoolteacher agreed to meet me. She quietly handed me her phone. "I filmed the accident," she said. "I thought someone would ask for it." The video showed everything. The traffic light turning green for me. The black sedan racing through the red light. The exact moment Ethan slammed into my scooter. My hands trembled. Not because I was afraid. Because I finally held the truth. I immediately copied the original file onto 3 encrypted drives, uploaded another copy to secure cloud storage, and printed screenshots showing the timestamp and location data. For the first time since the crash, I smiled. Ethan still believed I was powerless. He had absolutely no idea that his downfall had already begun. From that day forward, I stopped behaving like an injured victim. I became an investigator. Every receipt, every phone call, every email, and every tiny detail became another piece of a puzzle I intended to finish. My first request was for the city's traffic camera footage. A week later, I received an official response. The recording had supposedly been deleted because the storage system automatically erased files after 7 days. I refused to accept that answer. Instead, I requested the maintenance records for the traffic cameras at that intersection. Those records revealed something interesting. The camera had been working perfectly on the day of my accident. The footage had existed. Someone had simply allowed it to disappear. That was not bad luck. That was a decision. Next, I began researching Callaway Holdings. Public court records showed multiple lawsuits filed by small business owners who claimed Ethan's company had threatened them into accepting unfair settlements. Most of those cases had quietly disappeared before reaching trial. The same law firm appeared again and again. The same accountant. The same private investigator. Patterns never lied. A week later, I received an anonymous email asking if I was still pursuing the case. The sender refused to reveal his identity online. Instead, he suggested meeting inside a small family diner across town. I arrived early. He entered through the back door wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses. He introduced himself as a former financial manager at Callaway Holdings. He spoke softly. "Ethan rewards loyalty." Then his expression darkened. "But he destroys anyone who questions him." He described missing financial records. Witnesses changing their statements. Employees forced to sign harsh confidentiality agreements. I asked if he would testify. His face immediately turned pale. "I have 2 children," he whispered. "I can't." Before leaving, he slid a business card across the table. The name printed on it was Laura Bennett. Forensic accountant. She knows more than anyone. That evening I called the number. I expected another rejection. Instead, Laura invited me to visit her office after normal business hours. She spent nearly 2 hours reviewing every document I had collected. When she finished, she leaned back in her chair. "The accident alone may not be enough," she said calmly. "But bribing an officer, altering official records, hiding evidence, and attempting to silence you." She paused. "That's a completely different investigation." For the first time, someone with real experience believed me. Laura refused to charge me a single dollar. Instead, she handed me a small digital voice recorder. It cost less than $40. "Keep this with you," she said. "Never argue. Never threaten. Just let guilty people keep talking." As I walked home beneath the city lights, I realized Ethan had already made his biggest mistake. He had forgotten my face. To him, I was just another poor delivery rider whose life could be buried beneath money and influence. He never imagined that every careless decision he continued making was creating even more evidence against himself. He believed the story had ended on the day he hit my scooter. Mine was only beginning. 3 weeks after the accident, my phone rang while I was helping my mother prepare dinner. The number was unfamiliar. A calm, professional voice introduced herself as Ethan Calloway's executive assistant. "Mr. Calloway would like to resolve this unfortunate misunderstanding privately." I listened without interrupting. She offered me $15,000 if I signed a settlement agreement, accepted responsibility for the accident, and promised never to discuss the incident again. I thanked her politely. Then I asked her to email the contract. She agreed immediately. An hour later, the document arrived. 42 pages. At first glance it looked like a standard settlement. But hidden near the end was a clause requiring me to destroy every photograph, medical record, witness statement, and recording related to the collision. Another clause demanded that I never contact the police, the media, or any government agency. Breaking the agreement would cost me more than $200,000 in penalties. They weren't paying for peace. They were paying for silence. I printed the entire contract and carried it straight to Laura's office. She read every page carefully. Then she smiled. Only once. "They're scared." I frowned. "How can you tell?" She pointed at the confidentiality clause. "Innocent people don't pay $15,000 to someone they already defeated." That sentence changed everything. Instead of rejecting the offer, I replied that I wanted to meet Ethan in person before signing anything. His office accepted within minutes. The meeting took place inside a luxurious conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. Everything smelled expensive. Fresh flowers. Italian leather. Polished wood. Ethan entered 10 minutes late, wearing another perfectly tailored charcoal suit. The same expensive cologne. The same arrogant smile. He sat across from me as though negotiating the purchase of another office building. He never apologized. Not once. "You've had a difficult month," he said. "This money gives you a chance to move on." "My father still needs treatment," I answered quietly. "Exactly." He slid the contract toward me. "Think about your family instead of your pride." I nodded slowly. Then I asked one question. "Did you ask that police officer to change the accident report?" His smile disappeared. For nearly 3 seconds he remained silent. Then he looked toward his attorney. "I don't know what you're talking about." His lawyer immediately interrupted. "I don't think we should discuss the accident itself." Interesting. Neither of them denied knowing the officer. Neither of them questioned why I asked. They simply wanted the conversation to end. As we stood to leave, Ethan stepped closer. His voice dropped to a whisper. "You should understand something. People like you always lose." I looked directly into his eyes. Only when they stop fighting. For the first time, I saw uncertainty. Just for a moment. He still believed intimidation worked. He never realized the tiny recorder hidden inside my handbag had captured every word. When I reached my apartment, I immediately created 3 encrypted backups and wrote a detailed summary while every sentence remained fresh in my memory. If Ethan wanted a war built on evidence, I was more than ready. Nearly 2 months after the crash, every piece of the puzzle finally fit together. Laura arranged a confidential meeting with an assistant district attorney who specialized in public corruption cases. We arrived carrying 2 organized binders. Inside them were medical records, delivery logs, GPS reports, witness statements, photographs, the hidden settlement agreement, my recorded meeting with Ethan, and a detailed timeline documenting every event from the moment of the collision. The prosecutor listened quietly. He asked only a few questions. When we finished, he requested every original file. I handed them over without hesitation. Then we waited. The investigation remained completely confidential. Search warrants were approved. Bank records were subpoenaed. Phone records were examined. Emails were recovered. Within weeks, investigators uncovered a series of suspicious payments moving through several shell companies connected to Callaway Holdings. The money eventually reached accounts controlled by the traffic officer's brother. The transfers had been disguised as consulting fees. Individually, they looked harmless. Together, they exceeded $120,000 over 3 years. My accident had uncovered something much larger than anyone expected. Several former employees accepted legal protection and agreed to cooperate. They described altered reports, destroyed documents, threatened witnesses, financial manipulation. Laura quietly looked at me. The pattern is complete. One Friday morning, prosecutors executed search warrants at multiple offices owned by Callaway Holdings. Federal agents carried computers, accounting files, mobile phones, and storage devices out of the buildings while television cameras recorded everything. News channels interrupted their regular programming. Business analysts questioned the company's future. Before the stock market closed that afternoon, Callaway Holdings had lost nearly 28% of its value. Banks suspended important credit facilities. Several investors immediately withdrew. Business partners canceled negotiations overnight. For the first time in his privileged life, money could not protect Ethan Callaway. 3 weeks later, I entered the courthouse wearing the only formal suit I owned. It wasn't expensive, but it represented every sacrifice my family had ever made. Across the courtroom, Ethan looked completely different. His confident smile had vanished. Dark circles surrounded his eyes. His legal team filled an entire table with thick binders. None of them mattered. When the prosecutor played the witness video, absolute silence filled the courtroom. Then my recorded meeting echoed through the speakers. Every threat, every lie, every attempt to silence me. Then the financial records appeared on the courtroom screen. The traffic officer lowered his head. Ethan closed his eyes. No one spoke. The judge ordered criminal proceedings to continue and referred additional evidence for corruption charges against everyone involved. As court adjourned, Ethan slowly turned toward me. "You planned this," he whispered. I calmly shook my head. "No. You ruined my life." I looked at him without anger. "You ruined your own." Security officers placed a hand on his shoulder and escorted him away while reporters rushed toward the courtroom doors. Months earlier, I had left another building on a stretcher believing my future was over. Now I walked out carrying only a folder filled with truth. And this time, the truth had finally won. 6 months later, the civil court ordered Ethan Callaway to compensate me for my medical expenses, lost income, rehabilitation, legal costs, and future treatment. The money never erased the pain, but it gave my parents something priceless: stability. My father never skipped another dialysis appointment. My mother finally received a custom wheelchair that allowed her to leave the house comfortably. We moved into a small home with bright windows and a quiet garden. Every morning felt like a new beginning. As for Ethan, criminal convictions destroyed his reputation. Investors disappeared. Business partners walked away. His companies were sold to satisfy debts. The man who believed ordinary people always lost discovered that arrogance carries the highest price. Friends sometimes ask whether revenge made me happy. I always give the same answer: revenge fades. Justice lasts. I never screamed. I never threatened. I never broke the law. I simply documented every lie until the truth spoke for itself. The damaged delivery helmet still sits on a shelf in my office. Whenever I look at it, I remember the frightened young woman lying on the pavement believing everything was over. She had no idea she was about to become stronger than anyone who tried to silence her. If this story reminded you that truth and patience can defeat power, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Let me know in the comments what you would have done.